So it was utter chaos on Monday Night Raw. Braun Strowman and Bronson Reed absolutely tore apart the arena in Portland. And I'm talking quite literally here too. Walls, production equipment, even fans were used as projectiles. But we didn't get a conclusion to that match. But Bronson Reed has a rather large hole in his bank account after that match. But he's been good enough to join me here on SEN. Bronson Reed, welcome back.
Yes. No, thanks for having me. I'm happy I'm on this bit of steamroll in WWE, but as you said, at the same time, Adam Pearce can get stuffed.
Well, the last time we spoke was actually on the road to WrestleMania last year, and since then, man, you have added a couple of accolades to that title. Winning this year's Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal has been a highlight to your singles career, but let's talk about the big impact you've had on Raw, because you announced yourself probably about a month ago when you just flattened and decimated Seth Rollins with 6 tsunamis. I think Michael Cole had an aneurysm on commentary. But what made you take matters into your own hands?
It's one of those things, I've always been the guy that they've looked at as a in-ring talent where they could put anyone with me and I'll have a good match. Whether I'm wrestling a cruiserweight or whether I'm wrestling someone like Braun Strowman, I've always been able to have good matches with anyone, but you also need something else apart from being a match guy that makes you stand out. So I feel like that had more of an impact than any match I could have had by going out there and destroying Seth Rollins in front of people. And by the way that I did it as well, it wasn't just one tsunami, leave. It was a constant over and over. And by the time I got up there for the 5th or 6th tsunami, the people in the audience who love Seth Rollins were cheering for me to do more. And as soon as I hit that 6th one, they started booing me and then started cheering for him again. So it shows that the power of that move, I guess.
We haven't actually seen Seth Rollins since then. Now, this is a guy that is a former world champion. In fact, he's almost done it all. And
I think he might be a Grand Slam champion, yeah.
I think you're actually right there. And I was just looking through the list of people that have unfortunately been on the receiving end. Seth Rollins, The Miz, Sheamus, and Braun Strowman, as I mentioned. All of these guys, former world champions. You've manhandled the absolute lot of them. Now, I know, for those of mine, I know you had some single success during your time in NXT. You were North American champion when you were down there, but you're yet to have a title during your time on Raw. Now, is this your way to maybe show someone like Adam Pearce, who's Raw general manager, that, hey, look, I'm ready for the challenge, man, and hurry up and give it to me?
Yeah, I want this to slingshot me into the main event scene, and I have nothing against the tag team championships or the intercontinental championship. Like, I'd love to be both of them, but I want to be a part of that world heavyweight championship scene. And I think the way to do it is what I'm doing right now, is by getting as many eyes on me as possible. And whether that's, from throwing a fan into Braun Strowman or going through a wall or jumping onto a car, whatever it takes to get me there, I'll do it.
It's really chaotic. And we've noticed this since that initial attack on Seth Rollins. Yeah, it's like, for anyone that hasn't seen your work beforehand, I think this has been a hell of an eye-opener, because, and we've just heard, there's been so many changes in the WWE in the past month or so. Oh, well, this past year, since WrestleMania, we've sort of had a reset. And since then, we've really noticed, like, oh my God, Bronson Reed's a dude that we need to keep our eye on.
Yeah, I think people knew it. I think, especially the people within the company, the higher ups, they knew what they had with me. For the longest time, throughout my whole career, it's always been I've had to go out there and sort of prove myself. I did that in Australian wrestling for the longest time. I went from the pre-show on Australian wrestling shows to then being the main event and the champion. I did the same thing when I went to Japan, and I'm doing the same thing here. I did the same thing in NXT, and I still don't think I'm at the peak yet. So I feel like 2025 is going to be where you get to see me do some really incredible things.
I think that's what the scary thing is, because when we first saw Braun Strowman being the guy that was thinking that he's going to be the one to put a full stop to this reign of terror by Bronson Reed, we really, and to quote Wade Barrett, who is one of my absolute favorite comedians, 2 big meat planets just coming together. And this is the thing, it's still yet to be unfinished. Like, what can we do? You literally destroyed the ring. You almost destroyed the arena. What can we do to put these 2 huge opposing objects? Like, what is your end game when it comes to this feud with Braun Strowman?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. Every Monday night I show up. We have obviously this rivalry going, so it's only going to get bigger and badder for the things that we're doing. So it's going to come to an end when one of us doesn't get up, I guess. So I'm planning on that being me standing at the end of the day. So we'll see how we get there. I don't know, but this feud has been so talked about. It's been one of the most viewed things on WWE social media. And it's sort of been a resurgence for Braun himself, who was seen as a monster a few years ago, but not now. And it's sort of been a surgence for me. So it's been good.
I want to take you back to your time in NXT because while you were down there, you had a rivalry with Damian Priest. And I've had a chat with Damian Priest a couple of years back, and he was saying how much of a highlight it was to, share the squared circle with you. But we've seen him become Money in the Bank winner, a former world champion.
Yes.
And right now, he's one of the big names on Raw at the moment. And I've happened to notice you guys haven't been swimming in the same stream. And I think that will we be seeing a tsunami perhaps coming in his direction at some point in time?
Well, if he looked at me the wrong way backstage, maybe. But he's one of the guys, I came up with him in NXT. I respect him a lot. We got to wrestle there, and I was very proud getting to see him become World Heavyweight Champion because it sort of validated our era of NXT, having someone from our era become the champion. You know what I mean? Like the Seths and the Romans, they were before us. So now that he's done that, you've obviously had Gunther do the same thing. He's sort of our era, and I want to be that as well. So I'm sure eventually you're going to see Priest versus Bronson in WWE. And when you do, I'm sure it's going to be magic.
We've sort of seen that too, especially with your era of NXT. Unfortunately, you're always judged by the generation before you. Like we saw that initial black and gold era that's just so highly regarded, and it's always hard to sort of top that, especially when you got guys of the caliber like Charlotte, Kevin Owens, Becky Lynch, all of these people that you see that are main eventing WrestleManias and stuff started off in black and gold NXT. But as you mentioned, Gunther, Damian Priest, yourself, that era has come through, and even now we see like Lyra Valkyria. Everyone is making that jump up. Did you, when you were down in NXT, feel that pressure at all? Or is it just something that you've always had to do because also being Australian, like we've never really had as much of a wealth of representation in sports entertainment overseas till we have now?
Yeah, I've always, I always put pressure on myself to try and go out there and perform the best that I can. And not only because I want to do it for myself, but for the longest time, I was doing it for Australian wrestling. I wanted to prove to people, even on the independents, when I used to go wrestle in the UK or if I wrestled in Japan, vice versa, I used to tell people like the Australian independent wrestling scene, in my opinion, is better than any other country. When it comes to per capita, when it comes to the amount of people we have doing it, I think we're the best. And I'll tell people that and they wouldn't believe me. But now, over the last 4 or 5 years, people are starting to realize like, oh, Australian wrestling is something special. So I've always put that pressure on myself, but I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, and I think we're really seeing that cream rise to the top here, especially in the past couple of years. Now, Bronson, before I let you go, it is, of course, AFL finals time here in Australia. I know you're a massive Port Adelaide supporter, and let's face it, it's been a roller coaster for the team the past few weeks. But
yes,
will you be watching the prelim tonight or whatever time it is in your neck of the woods?
Possibly, if I'm awake. It starts at 5:40 a.m. for me. So, but usually for these bigger games, I will make sure I get up and I watch it. If I do, I hope I'm not disappointed. So I have my fingers crossed. But like you said, it's like, it's been very up and down the last few weeks. So hopefully we can beat Sydney and get to a grand final.
Well, your track record against Sydney looks pretty good, but
yes, there is that.
I know this is getting a bit off topic, but what have you? Because you're a diehard Port supporter, and I know you literally wear it with pride. What have you thought about the narrative around Ken Hinckley and because especially I guess, being a Victorian, we have and since he's from Victoria, we often sort of see that like, I think he gets a bad rap but as a diehard Port supporter, and I know that his stats sort of go against him, like, he's never been to a grand final, but he's done this. Are you happy with what he's done with that current list that you've got? And because you're consistently up there in the finals for like the past 10 years.
I feel like the team does well, it gets together, and then something always seems to crumble. But I don't know if you can just blame one man. Obviously, he is the man to blame if you wanted to. It always goes to the coach. But I sort of have I guess, a love-hate relationship with Ken Hinckley, where there's been times where I'm like, he just needs to leave. We need someone else. We need someone new. And then sometimes, it's classic football. Sometimes things are going wrong. You're like, oh, maybe he's making the right choices. So I don't know. But I feel like new is never a bad thing. So, and he has spent a lot of time there. So, yeah. That's what I think.
I'll tell you, whatever. If we had the face to face with him and Ken, I'd be sitting there going, "I'll tell you what, man, I'm agreeing with Bronson. I love you, Ken, but I'm agreeing with the big dude over here." Hey, Bronson Reed, it's been an absolute pleasure to chat with you once again, man. And for those at home, you can catch Bronson Reed on Monday Night Raw every Tuesday on Binge, and the WWE's next premium live event, Bad Blood. That streams live Sunday, the 6th of October at 9 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Bronson Reed, it's been great to chat once again. Hopefully, next time we chat, maybe you'll be wearing the prison bars with pride, and Ken Hinckley will still have a job.
Yes. Yes, hopefully so. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.